Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of On Oshkosh. I'm your host, Cheryl Hentz. Very happy to be joined by one guest who has been here before, but for a different reason, and that is Mike Lueder. He is the interim director at UW-O's Center for Civic and Community Involvement, and you're also full-time staff at the university. And then seated next to him and in between he and I, we have Jana Metko immediately to my right. She is a Civic Engagement intern, and to her right we have Chloe Strand, who is a Civic Engagement Fellow. And I have to confess, I have no idea what a fellow is in the academia world, so we're going to find out that tonight too. But welcome to all three of you.
Thank you.
I'm appreciative of you being here tonight. So I guess one of the first things that we should find out, Mike, is, what exactly is this big long title, the Center for Civic and Community Involvement? And, what does it do? What's its purpose or its mission?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having us here. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
This is just one of those great things that the university is doing that ties together what students are doing on campus and also connects and reaches into the local community, which is pretty fantastic. So the center is a place where we're trying to build partnerships between individuals and organizations to address community problems and situations that are happening and build people's sense of civic and community engagement through what they do. And everybody can do that. And we realized through lots of studying and evaluation and talking with different stakeholders that if we built something really great on campus for our students to learn from, there's no reason we couldn't take those things and immediately apply them to our local community. Really build that town-gown relationship between UW-O and the city of Oshkosh. So this center is one of those things that does that.
How long has it been around, and how did it get its inception?
We officially launched in September of 2021, so we're not even a full year's old
Wow.
yet. Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, but I came to the university in the summer of 2008, and I started in our activities world doing a number of things, including volunteerism. So my task then was to build volunteer events for students to participate in, sort of as extracurricular activities. So we did things like days of service that we call Hands on Oshkosh, where we'd have like 250 students go out into the local community and do a morning of work at a nonprofit, and that's an event that still happens today. Other service trips, we built the alternative spring break service trip where we take students on a week-long experience over spring break. They expanded it to include our January break as well. We did international trips and domestic trips through that program. But as we were doing all that and building all that, I had always started thinking like there could be more to this. And then in about 2012, they were revolutionizing our general education program on campus, the core classes that all students take. And when they did that, they built in these classes that we call Quest 3. But really the spirit behind them is that we want students to be engaged in community-based learning. So we want them to be studying academic discipline, academic course content, but then go into the community and see that and see it happening in real time in some way, shape, or form. Experience it and then bring that lesson back to the classroom again. So we launched that, and then we've been running that. The first Quest 3 classes started in 2014, and those have been going really well. But then we're still like, what's next? I'm a what's next kind of guy, right? So like, what could be next? And when we created that program, the general education Quest 3 courses, we knew that we were creating that as an appetizer experience to give students, because we do it with all sophomore students, give students a taste of how big Oshkosh is, all the great organizations that are involved, get them exposed to it, but also get them thinking about what else could I do? How else could I be involved? But we never had a system in place that gave them the opportunity to be involved in whatever is next for them. And that was sort of the impetus behind pushing this a little further. So we had some time. I think in 2018 we created a task force. We got lots of community stakeholders together, nonprofit agencies, funders, faculty, staff, students, ask a lot of questions and really built out the design of what a center would look like. Hit a little bit of a roadblock with COVID in between there.
I was going to ask what that did for you.
It put us on hold for a little bit is what it did, but lots of things had to be put on hold, and that's okay. And coming out of that, there was the right time, right place, and we got the go-ahead to start. So we just, we had all these ideas built up, and then it's all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, we've had all these ideas. How do we implement them now very quickly? So the fall was just a lot of like figuring it out. And then this past spring semester, we were actually, I think, very productive with our actual events.
Okay. Well, I want to talk a little bit about, some of the events that you've done, but are there any other foundational steps along the way that we need to talk about before we move on to kind of the next thing?
Yeah, well, I think the thing, like, as we looked at the center, and this mission of what we have is we try to do it sort of in three big buckets or three big categories. So we're going to continue to do work with our faculty, doing workshops with them, trainings with them, talking with them. If they want to sort of do what's a next step with an upper level course, we want to provide them the support to do that. So as an example, we've worked with the journalism department, and they've been doing this kind of work for a while. So we help them now recruit the agencies that they work with. Because when I went to talk to them, I said, how do you find partners? And they're like, well, sometimes a student knows someone, sometimes I hear about something. I was like, I have a list of 150 agencies. Let me help you with this, right? So we're trying to streamline that process with faculty. With our community partners and talking with them, we realized there's different levels of support that they needed. Some of them, like at our nonprofits, they're generally small. They don't have big staffs. If a volunteer coordinator switches, there's no one else in that organization who knows how to do that job. But we have a pool of resources who can help orientate that person to Oshkosh and how to be successful in their work. We have a list of best practices that agencies can be doing, and we can help train them in how to do those types of things. We bring together nonprofit agencies every other month to talk, because volunteers recruitment, there's one person doing it here, one there. Let's bring them together and share resources, and that's a great group that comes together. So that's a way that we can help them. And then the students and community, there's the four main areas we're trying to work with them on, and that's volunteer, vote, intern, and learn. So that's where these two come into place a little bit, where our programming comes into place. The voter education stuff, there's lots of work that we're trying to do in voter education, get out the vote kind of work. We have a couple of events that we did this past year that I'd love to talk about as well. And then volunteering, we're partnering with the Oshkosh Area United Way. They host a website called volunteeroshkosh.org, where we're really encouraging all agencies to put their information, and then anybody, students or community members, to go there to find means to go out and volunteer and really serve as that group that's rallying back the cause of, hey, agencies are out there, they're doing work, they need help, now's the time to come help them. And I think especially now we're in 2022, a lot of the pandemic stuff is hopefully behind us a bit more, and people are feeling more comfortable coming out again, because Oshkosh as a community has been doing so much great work for a long time, and it's a community that really supports each other, and we need to get back to doing that. We got to help people find those opportunities, and that's even some work that Jana does is with that website alone. So we partner with the United Way to help them support that website and its work.
Sure, and I'm going to kind of hop around here a little bit.
Yeah.
I know that we've got an outline that we wanted to try and follow, but I don't want these guys to just sit here and nod their heads and not have a chance to talk.
Yeah.
So I guess the first question that I have is, there's probably other people out there who have not been in the world of academia who don't know what a fellow is, and I see it all the time. It's the second time today that I've seen this come up. So what is a fellow? How do you get to become a fellow?
So I really just applied online, and so I'm doing a lot of, when I'm at the events, I'm signing people in, I'm counting people and stuff like that. I don't do all the big stuff, but I still do a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Whereas at home, I'm more so posting on social media, talking to people, letting kids know that they can vote, and hopefully letting people know that these opportunities are there for them. So that's kind of what I do. I'm behind the scenes, but still working on stuff.
And a regular intern could do that, right? So how do you become, well, let's talk about what you do.
Yeah.
So Jana, take it away.
I mostly work with the volunteerism side of things. So working with community, connecting them to students, connecting students to community, all the volunteer work. I also help organize events and things like that.
Okay.
So we've kind of scaled at that. We have a couple groups of students that make up our Fellows program. Fellows for us is really an educational opportunity for students.
Okay.
So The interns are paid by the center and they work more hours. We have some civic influencers that receive a stipend, and then the volunteer fellows are volunteers, so they have the least amount of work and commitment, but get to exposed to the opportunity as well.
Well, I see the word fellow in a lot of different academia situations, and like someone who's maybe, I'm a writer, so I get writing publications. I'll see ads from time to time for looking for someone to go into like the masters, to become a master's of fine arts, and they can apply to be a fellow, or they are a fellow, or whatever. What is that different from
that's
what
different
Chloe's
from what we're
doing?
doing, yeah.
Okay.
So in that sense, a lot of times there'll be sort of an outside person coming in and then embedded into that faculty for a period of time.
Okay.
So we're kind of taking it from the student sense of they sort of get to be embedded into the center for a period of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you're working with businesses out in the community, whether they're for-profit or not-for-profit, do they get charged for this? Is there a charge or a fee that they pay?
We primarily work with nonprofit agencies,
Okay.
and no, we're not charging them. First thing, we wanted to show proof of concept that we could do something to begin with, and then, having served on nonprofit boards myself, there's so much money to go around, right? And a lot of the donors are giving to lots of these agencies already. So hopefully, at some point, if we can build out our staff a little bit more and support that through some of those larger funders and larger foundations, there'd be no reason to charge then an agency from that same pot of money to like pay it back. So we want to really be a resource just for the organizations. Plus, we see it as a win-win. If we can help an agency build its capacity and create a really great volunteer program, well, that's a win for our students to be able to go there. It helps our academic classes as a great place to land students and do projects with. So there's value in us investing into their infrastructure a little bit as well.
So that's what you're really doing. You're going into these places, and whether it's on campus or in the greater community at large, you're going in and trying to build their volunteerism in some way.
Yeah.
Whether they have a volunteer program that's in existence and they need to beef it up. When I say the word beef, I think of that commercial years ago. Wasn't it for Hardee's? Where's the
Where's
beef?
the beef? Yeah.
Clara, what was her last name? Peller?
No.
Clara Peller? I think it was Clara Peller. Or Pelton? I don't know. Whatever. I don't know why I went off on that. But I was thinking about beef.
Yeah.
Maybe because I haven't had dinner yet either. that could be. But so you're beefing up their volunteer program if they already have one.
Correct.
Say like at the Humane Society, for example. Well, obviously they have their own volunteer program, but you could go in and maybe do something more to enhance that. Or if they have zero volunteer program, say they're a relatively new nonprofit,
Yeah.
you could help them get it started.
Correct.
And then how long do you stay with them to work on this? How long of a commitment?
It depends on their need, So like I always refer them to connect with Jana right away, so she can help them with the website side of things. And I don't know how many agencies you've worked with over the years, and she has a list. She charts them and tracks them, and sees what help they need and supports them as long as they need it. And it just kind of varies based on their needs. We'll do what we can do.
Okay, all right. So one of the things, so there's 3 breakdowns here: students, and let's talk about each one of those. So for the students, it's volunteer, vote, intern, and learn, and
Correct.
You sort of addressed that before. So what can we tell the public, whether they're watching this on YouTube, on cable access, or they're listening to this on the radio? What specifically can you guys tell them about that particular aspect of this program at the center?
Yeah, so for learning, we tried to do a variety of different educational programs. So this past spring semester, we focused on criminal justice reform. I'll let Jana talk about the fantastic keynote, well, not a keynote, but a speaker that we had come in to do remarks.
Yeah. This March, actually, we had Anthony Ray Hinton come in and speak. He was wrongfully incarcerated and on death row for 30 years. Due to the Equal Justice Initiative, he was freed, and now he shares his story with college students, with communities, and we were lucky enough to have him come speak at Oshkosh and just the impact and perseverance of his life is really cool.
And what was his name again?
Anthony Ray Hinton.
Anthony Ray Hinton. Okay, so I've
Yeah,
got
he has a book as an Oprah book club, like 2018 book. I think it's The Sun Does Shine is the name of his book.
What was he, do you know much about him? I mean, what was he in prison for?
He was wrongfully incarcerated for a murder, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah,
Murders.
2 murders, but he,
Well, you hear about that a lot.
yeah.
And then comes up the argument of capital punishment. And, you know, I don't know why I'm shy about giving my personal views on this, but I'm not going to be, I guess. I think if you can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that someone did something, then maybe they're a candidate for, you know, being executed by the state. But it has to be beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
Not one scintilla of doubt.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a tough burden to meet. You know, it's been met though by plenty of people in plenty of cases. But you know, I just saw the other day, for example, someone got out of prison again, and they had been in for 15 or 20 years. And you know, and one of the things I think that happens there is, and we're not here to talk about that necessarily, but since that was part of his story, you know, back so many years ago, they didn't have DNA evidence. Now they do, and if they can still find some DNA, you know, exhume a body or go back into some of the evidence that they preserved specifically for things like this,
Yeah.
you know, that's a good way of helping to get someone out. Do you know, was the Innocence Project involved with helping to free him at all? Or?
It was the Equal Justice Initiative.
Just that
so
one.
He's in
Okay.
the state. He was in the state of Alabama.
Okay.
So that was, and people may know that group from the movie and the book Just Mercy, written by Brian Stevenson.
Okay.
Brian Stevenson is the lead attorney who runs that center and worked with Anthony on his case.
Okay.
You know, and in Anthony's case, and like many, like he was just very, very wrongfully accused and convicted, and there were ballistics evidence, and the people lied about it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like they pushed hard enough after 30 years to get them to review it and get them, the Supreme Court ultimately stepped in, the U.S. Supreme Court stepped in to say this needs to be retried, and at that point the state just said we're going to drop the charges. So it was just really sad. But what was unique for our institution is a lot of different groups were focusing on criminal justice reform this past spring. So we luckily had that speaker. There was another speaker that came in about it, and then we hosted a closing panel on it, looking at criminal justice reform in the state of Wisconsin and more locally as well. So what was nice was we could take this really big issue that's happening all over the country, but then bring it back down to more the local state level and see what's happening here with some local speakers as well.
Sure.
So that's kind of what we're going to try to do is pick big themes and then, you know, work them from a variety of different angles, because one speaker or one presentation on it doesn't really give you the full picture, because they're complex issues. So it's an opportunity that we have to kind of work on.
Sure. I am just curious, did he talk at all about what it was like for him to, because look how much has changed since he's been incarcerated. I mean, computers probably weren't even a thing back then. And now you've not only got computers, but you got laptop computers, you've got cell phones that are mini computers in and of themselves. I mean, you've got cars that can do many things for themselves. That must have been like did he talk at all about that? Because that must have been a big culture shock for him.
Yeah, he did. He talked for a good 10 minutes maybe about that. I personally thought it was really interesting, just the technology in phones. Like when he went in, there was no such thing as a telephone. But now they're everywhere, and you just talk.
Oh wait, there was no such thing as a phone?
Cell phone,
Cell phone,
Jana.
okay. I was gonna say, whoa.
Again, young person. Sorry.
She doesn't know what a wall phone is. That's okay. Yeah.
No, I was, because I wasn't sure. I thought, wait, did she make the mistake, or am I mishearing, or what? But yeah.
But he did talk about cars, and when his friend picked him up from the airport, how all of a sudden he's like, some lady was talking at me in the car, and he didn't know where she was. He was
the
very freaked
navigation
out by
system.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And his friend just laughed
It
at him.
can be
but-
freaky, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
geez.
And also on the sad side of it, in his book, he talked about how the very first night he stayed with his best friend who visited him the entire time he was in prison. Talked about they had a very nice room set up for him, a guest room with this big bed and everything like that. And it wasn't comfortable for him. He went and slept in the bathroom the first night because that's the size of what he was used to. So it's just like he has all this PTSD that he's carrying with him still, and he's continuing to work through it. Even being out for a number of years. But
does he still live in Alabama?
Still lives in Alabama. Lives in his mother's house. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good for that.
He was a great individual, a great soul. We're so lucky to have had him. And it was an open event to the public, and that was really great about it. So we had a number of community members, people who are doing sort of criminal justice reform locally who were there as well. We had some people who also had been incarcerated and gone through some similar things that he had who were at the presentation as well and got to talk to him. So that's what we want to do. We want to take these really interesting topics, really interesting events, and they're great for our students and they're so lucky to have them, but we want to open them up to the community also.
Sure. There are a couple of 2 or 3 Catholic sisters here in town, and they have been very, not so much recently, and I think because of COVID probably, but they were very involved in trying to get some criminal justice reform going. So don't get away from me tonight before I give you that information, or at least find a way to hook you up with them, because they could maybe be of some help to you. Or you to them too, for that matter. Again, that partnering, right?
Exactly.
So is there anything else that anyone wanted to talk about with the volunteer, vote, intern, and learn part of this?
Well, I think a really great sort of combination of learn and vote event that we did this past year, and I unfortunately wasn't able to attend it because I had COVID at the time, and hopefully these two can talk about some more of the details, but we wanted to do a Why Local Elections Matter event up with the April election that was coming. So a week before the election was our event, and we invited all of the candidates for the school board race, the city council, what else was up for the 6 different
county
judicial
board.
The county board and the 6 different judicial candidates to come to campus. All of those candidates came, not all the county board, but all the other ones came. We had like 22 to 25 candidates on campus for, I believe, 2 hours, open available to talk to constituents, a lot of our students and a lot of the community members. And these two can kind of talk about sort of how it went and what they learned as they talked to people.
Yeah, I did attend this event as well, and I honestly have pretty much been in the university bubble my whole life at college, so I've never really understood what's outside in our community, so it was really cool to meet and speak to these people. I actually saw one of my regulars at my job who I didn't even know was a candidate, so that was really cool, but just to talk to them and understand where they're coming from, what their beliefs and morals are, was really inspiring. I was very happy to talk to them about it.
Yeah, sure. People who were attending, members of the public who were coming to hear these folks, was it any kind of a public debate, or was it just a meet and greet kind of thing?
Yeah, we gave them a table.
Yeah. So what did you hear from the public as far as feedback on, A, you're putting this on, and B, what they felt about the candidates?
I think one thing that I did hear was the importance of it being in the university itself. I think it was cool for the public to see students coming in who also want to be educated on what they're voting for. So I heard that a couple of times, actually, that it was cool to be in the university and talking to these people.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an important point, because I think far too often people, they look at the university or they look at the kids as they're marching down on a Thursday to Saturday, Sunday night from bar to bar and what have you. They have one certain mindset, and it's sort of tunnel vision about students. And, there's some students who probably deserve that moniker, if you will, but there are far more who don't. And I think it's good for the public in general to just see what's going on campus, and that the majority of students are involved and they're committed and they're trying to help make a difference, whether it's on campus or beyond. In which case, that kind of an event is not just on campus, but it's beyond too, because these people are going to serve not just students, but people all over the city, depending on what they were running for and what their districts might be.
Yeah, it was great. Even one of the students who helped plan the event, she had never voted before because of her age and when the last election was. So she's like, she was super intrigued to like learn about the candidates, and she's like, I learned who I wanted to vote for a couple of different races by actually being there and planning the event and getting to talk to them and meet them a little bit, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, and we even made the case to a lot of our students, like our College of Education students. It's like, you want to be a teacher and potentially in this community who serves on the school board should really matter to you. So this is your chance to come and talk to them. So we tried to really inform students like why this is important to them, because local elections have so much more impact on their daily lives than some of the bigger national races do. So it's really important that students get involved there.
I think that's a really good point, and I've said that for years. And you know, people think, oh, school board and county board and city council, whatever. You know, I worry about who's in Madison and I worry about who's in Washington. Well, you know what? At the end of the day, yeah, those are important too. But you know, when you buy a house or whatever, and you start seeing the chunk of money that goes for the Oshkosh School District and the colleges and so forth, then you see exactly why it's so important.
Yeah.
You know, because these people are making decisions that directly impact your pocketbook.
Exactly.
You know, not that Washington and Madison don't, but you see it more, and you feel it, I think, a little bit more when it's a local type race.
Yeah.
And it all starts there. Look how many people start at a local, you know, a local position and then kind of work their way up. And we're seeing that now with our mayor and someone from our city council. They're looking to, you know, fill Gordon Hentz's seat when
run
he
for the next
he
election.
retires.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we've finished the volunteer, vote, intern, and learn part of this, right? We can move on to the next piece. So the next piece is partners. And under that is something called GOVOL, G-O-V-O-L.
Go Vol.
Oh, GOVOL.
Yeah, go Vol. Like
Okay.
Go volunteer.
Go volunteer. I was going to say, is that what that's an acronym for?
Yeah.
And along with that is capacity building, volunteer trainings, and volunteer recruitment. So this is one you want to talk on, Mike? Or?
Yeah, and actually Jana will fill in a little bit too, but that,
All
so
right.
it's really, we renamed that group the Greater Oshkosh Volunteer Leaders Group, so GoVol for short.
Okay.
That's those every other month meetings that we have, so it's really geared towards volunteer coordinators and executive directors who can kind of come and learn a variety of different things, resource sharing. We had people from the university come and share about digital marketing. We just had somebody come and share about cybersecurity as agencies should start to think about some of that stuff too. So anything that we can bring to the table for them and then network with them, which is really great. But something they asked for as we did our focus groups way back when was just getting everybody, students in particular, but others as well, prepared to come to the agencies to start. So we put together a volunteer training that we're calling Volunteer 101, and Jana's really the person working most on it, so Jana can tell us a little bit about the training.
Yeah, as Mike said, nonprofits have asked specifically for this training. It's a training open to students, it's training open to the community, hopefully, just to get them prepared and what it's really like to volunteer. Getting them prepared for what nonprofit life is like, because it's different than regular jobs, and just really preparing them in how to communicate with people, what nonprofit is, because most people don't know if they're just doing it for class credit, but really getting into the customer service of it, for like equality and how that ties into nonprofits, and really just focusing on that.
Yeah. They developed a number of really great case studies that people can work their way through, getting volunteers to think about sort of the intentionality about why they're going and why they want to volunteer, which is great, I think, for our college students if they're trying to do it for a skills-based purpose or if they're trying to fill a certain requirement, which I think ultimately too would be really good for our K-12 students. You know, a lot of high schoolers are sort of required more to do some of this stuff, but they should be thinking about that. Are you just going because someone has told you have to, or is there something you also want to learn? Is there a skill you want to get better at, or do you bring an expertise to the table that maybe that agency can sort of leverage for something new? So getting people to reflect on that on the forefront of going, I think, is really important.
Yeah. In your working so closely with this and, you know, being the interim director and so forth, Mike, do you know offhand if there has ever been done any kind of study where there's been empirical data or anything that talks about how we could progress as a society if every single of-age person who's like maybe 16 years or older would donate, well, you're donating your time, would volunteer maybe 1 hour a week or 4 hours a month, or in however you wanted to break it down. But if they just would volunteer a very insignificant number of hours in a month, but every single person would do it, what we could accomplish in this country?
Yeah.
Do you know, is there anything done like that?
Not that I know of. In the work that we do, especially in the general education program, we've done some different assessment and evaluation, and through our program we learned that students who are engaged in this kind of work gain a tremendous amount in skills and learning about other people, learning about people with different backgrounds and beliefs, learning how to take initiative, learning leadership. So all those things, and that's not even what their classes are about, right? But they're learning those skills. We also see that the majority of them want to come back and serve in some way, shape, or form again. So we've done that kind of research. But I think communities can solve local problems so much more effectively than almost anything else. Sometimes you do need big outside help, right? But a lot of things can be taken care of if the local community comes together. And
Absolutely.
Like I said at the forefront, Oshkosh has been good at that for so long, and COVID has sort of put a wrench in that for a bit. So we need to start to rally that call back again, and let people know these agencies are out there. These agencies have continued to do their work. There's continuing to be people in need in a variety of scope of things. And if you have skills and abilities, bring them to the table. Even if you just have time, there's lots of agencies that just need people with time. Some of them need very specific skills. So you can kind of approach it from a variety of means, and we can get a lot done,
When you guys are working with volunteers, whether they be fellow students or people in the community, do you stress to them the importance of, hey, if you make a commitment to volunteer, you really should move heaven and earth to be there? And here's why I'm asking that question. I had someone maybe 9 months or so ago tell me, well, look, Cheryl, at the end of the day, I'm a volunteer. I don't have to do this. And I said, well, you're right. But you have volunteered and you've made a commitment. And I said, the board of directors at a volunteer organization, nonprofit, they're volunteers too. But look at it as a treasurer for any organization that you're on a board with, Mike. If that treasurer just said, I'm a volunteer, they can't hold me to this. I'll file these tax returns whenever. I'll just put them over here for now.
Yeah.
If they're there on April 15th, that's fine. If not, whatever. I got something better to do. They shove it aside. They volunteered. They still have to get those tax returns filed on time.
Yep.
So yes, you're volunteering, and you're not getting paid because that's what a volunteer does, but you still have a commitment. You can't just lollygag around your responsibility, and you have to, if you've got things that have hard and fast deadlines, those deadlines have to be met. You can't just say, you can't hold me to that, I'm just a volunteer. So do you guys stress that to the students as well as to the volunteers that you're getting into these organizations?
Yeah, actually, in part of our volunteer training, we focus entirely on that first section. We focus a lot on the why, as Mike was saying, so that they understand why they're there. They understand the importance of showing up. They understand the importance of being a volunteer. And they understand how nonprofits rely on them. Not doing something really breaks a nonprofit. And understanding why you're there again, is very important, and we do stress that a lot.
I'm glad to hear that, really. And, I feel very blessed because most of the organizations I'm involved with, the volunteers don't have that mindset. My crew here, we're small. They're small, but boy, they're mighty.
Exactly.
And they will move heaven and earth to be here. And, so I personally feel very blessed about that. But boy, that just really yanked my chain when that person said that to me because.
And I think one of the challenges with it is, there's been some people who are often required to do volunteer work, and that's something I really enjoy. Like, I don't like being required to volunteer, right? So that's why we're trying to have those conversations with them, sort of flip the script a little bit. But like, well, even if you're required to do it, like, what's your intentionality? Why are you going there? Because you could volunteer lots of places. So is it because it's a passion of yours and you just want to put your passion to a side, or is it because you have a specific skill set that they need and you're able to do it? So that way, maybe there's another little deeper hook besides the requirement, and get past some of that I can just not show up or do it later kind of mindset.
Yeah. Okay. All right, excellent. So this group, it meets every other month?
Correct. Yep.
How is it pronounced? Goval?
Goval.
Okay. So it meets every other month. Now we're moving into the end of May here. We're taping this on the 19th of May. By the time it starts airing, it'll be the last week of the month. So do you meet would this be a meeting week?
We meet the odd months, so we'll meet in July next, and we meet the second Tuesday of the month, and we meet at Father Carr's place to be at 11 o'clock.
Where at Father Carr's? Because that's a spread out place.
You go in the main entrance, and they have a community space. You can see it immediately when you walk in.
Okay, so give me that again.
The odd months of the year.
Odd months. Now wouldn't you know it? My pen just died. Okay, here we go. All right, odd months.
On Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Second Tuesday.
11 a.m. At Father Carr's.
Yeah. And most of the people that we have come are from sort of established volunteer agencies, but if there's maybe a troop leader for a Girl Scout or Boy Scout group who's really struggling with some issues, they could come in and talk with us as well. Like, there's no real requirements to our group. There's no membership fee. This is something that we have the ability to organize, and so we're going to organize it. And Father Carr's is very gracious in letting us meet there for free, and it just works really well for everyone to get together.
Sure. Okay. So let's talk about this speaker series, kind of thing. I see that you had a speaker by the name of Michelle Alexander. Who is she specifically? Why was she a speaker? And talk to us about the speaker series.
Yeah, she came actually through, there's a group at the university called the University Speaker Series. They bring a number of speakers to campus every year, so they booked her. But she sort of fell into that criminal justice reform. She wrote a book called The New Jim Crow.
Really I've heard of that book.
Yeah, looking at criminal justice. So there is a movie talkback for the movie Just Mercy, which is the Bryan Stevenson story with the Equal Justice Initiative. Then we had Anthony Ray Hinton, and then Michelle Alexander was there. And then we capped it off with the Advocates for Change Criminal Justice Reform in Wisconsin panel. So we actually just sort of saw that all these things were sort of coming together and happening. We're like, well, we have to market this together because criminal justice reform is a big issue and we need to see it from multiple angles. So that's something that we were able to take advantage of this past semester.
Okay.
Hopefully again in the future.
All right. Any word on, do you know yet who some of your speakers will be for the next school year, or is that something that you decide?
We're working on them now. We're working on some themes and talking with speakers and starting some contracts and stuff, but nothing's confirmed yet, unfortunately.
Okay.
But this fall, there's a big election happening again. It's
the
governor's race, the U.S. Senate race, and then all the, I forget exactly what they're called, but like the Attorney General, Lieutenant Governor, Secretary of Treasury, I forget them all.
The midterms are big.
Yeah, so there's a really big fall election cycle. So we'll be doing a lot of work on that. As we know, a lot of students on campus probably haven't voted before just because of when they turn 18 and those elections happen. So doing some work and just educating people on how to register and where to register and all that kind of work is a big piece of what we do. There is a polling site on campus, so that works well for our campus residents, but then students who live in the community, we help them figure out which polling site they need to go to. And then we're hoping that we can do an event with the governor candidates and bring them in for some open panel discussions. I think as we've kind of talked with some of our interns and some other faculty who do this kind of planning, I think people are sort of turned off from debates right now. At least that's the Mike's perception of things, and you just don't really get a great insight into where a candidate sits. Because like Just think like you're asked, explain your foreign policy stance in 2 minutes. Like you can't do that. That's a tough thing to do, right? So we want to do an open panel. We want to do hopefully one night with Governor Evers and then one night with whoever the Republican challenger is, but have students there asking them some questions, giving them some longer time to respond to things and get more in depth to really see where people sit on issues and sort of bring that conversation back into politics so people can really understand where our candidates lie and then make good quality decisions about who they want to vote for.
Yeah, well, at least you're going to put a time limit on it to some degree. You know, I'll never forget, this was, oh my God, this was so many years ago, but I always try and have the candidates for local offices on. I say try because I can't always get them all on. But there was this guy, he was running for a local race, and one of my first questions that I always ask is, you know, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for, you know, XYZ seat. Well, honest to God, he came in with handwritten pages. I'll bet you he had 10 or 15 pages. And when I asked that, he started reading. And then he got to the next page and he kept reading. Now, I was raised, you don't interrupt someone, especially your elder, when they're speaking. But at some point I had to, you know, because he was not stopping and he just kept on. And I thought, this is kind of a snooze fest now because all he's doing is reading. He's taking time away from other guests. He's going to be putting the audience to sleep, and he's not answering the question. All he's doing is telling people what he wants them to hear. Yeah. So I did have to interrupt. and he didn't like that too much. And, you know, he still kept wanting to just keep reading. So, you know, I learned that you do have to interrupt people sometimes. Okay, so fall 2022, speakers, election events, voter registration drives. I don't think we really talked so much about what the plan is for that.
That's getting students informed about how to register in the first place, those who haven't voted before. One of the things we've learned is on campus, especially if you live in a campus building, a campus residence hall, there's a couple extra steps you have to do. So we've done some work to really outline those steps and make it as easy as possible, even with the additional steps, because not only do you have to change your address with the DMV, but your mailing address is kind of funky in how it shows up on voter rolls, so you need an extra paper. So we've done as much as we can do to make it a smooth process for students to vote.
Yeah. And, you know, they're always looking for people to help work the polls on election day.
A number of students do that as well.
And that's a volunteer thing. And I will say this, I hope that this works out because, you know, I've been a poll voter for a number of years, and it makes just for, I haven't done it in the last year or two since COVID. Quite frankly, I was afraid, you know, so I didn't. But I was for quite some time before that. But boy, that just makes for a long day. You know, you're there at 5:45, 6 in the morning starting to set up, and then all day long until the polls close at 8. Then you got to finish doing everything. Then you got to take everything down. And like the election when Trump was elected, boy, I bet you it was a 14, 15-hour day for me. And that's long. That's a lot of work. You know, and
but
so
if more people helped, it'd be a lot easier.
Well, what they're trying to do now is we have Pam Ubrig, our city clerk, retired earlier this year. So the new city clerk is hoping to have people be able to work half days.
That'd be great.
It is, but to do that, you've got to have more people. You know, so. But I turned in mine tonight that I'm gonna work the polls.
Yeah,
so
and people like you
here's
doing
what
that.
I'd like to do. If here's the shift I'd like to work. Yeah. Okay, so talk to us a little bit about this Volunteer 101 program. And I think that's your deal, kind of, Jana, right?
Yeah, you talked a little bit about it.
Yeah, is there anything more? I mean, as I understand it, nonprofits asked for that. Do you know why they wanted that done? Why they thought that was important?
Yeah, most college students have never volunteered before, don't have that on their resume, and have no idea where to start. So not only does the Volunteer 101 training give access to students to show them where to go for volunteer opportunities, but it also prepares them for the volunteer trainings, and a lot of times nonprofits bring in these college students who have no idea what they're doing, absolutely no idea. So that's really what our volunteer training focuses on at the campus specifically.
Okay.
Is just getting students prepared for that.
And it also helps that we can get to big groups of students at one time. So Jana's going to try to find ways to sort of network in with some of the groups that we know volunteer on a pretty regular basis, but could use a little bit of guidance. So like we can get to all of Greek life at once. If we can get to all of athletics at once, we can take some big chunks of students and get them up to speed really fast.
Okay. All right. And how long is that program? Is it just a one-time thing? And is it an hour? Is it a couple hours? How long is it?
Yeah, currently it is a 1 hour process, but we're working on putting it into an online course.
Okay. When will that be online? Do you have any idea?
We'll say this fall.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. That'll give you a deadline, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Jan's like, great.
And is that something that they'll be able to find then by going to the...
We'll get it on our website, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And we've got that website address, and I think that they've been putting it up throughout the show.
Perfect.
So let's see, moving on. We talked about the gentleman who was wrongfully incarcerated. Okay, Chloe, here's a couple for you.
Sure.
You know, we didn't really touch on this before. How and why did you become involved?
So with the center?
Yes.
So
yes.
I actually took a freedom of speech course over my J term in January of 2022, and that really opened my eyes to all the rights that I have. So freedom of speech, freedom of press, petition, to just rally. And I was really interested in this. And so my professor said, if you're really interested, we kind of have this program to help you learn your rights and how to exercise them. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to apply right away. I'm going to go. And I loved it. And it's been really fun, really knowledgeable for me. I've met a lot of people, opened a lot of doors for myself. So it's been fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And something we've done with all the fellows is not only do they help with our events, but we get together monthly to talk, and there's a different theme every month and sort of a different project that they have to do. So they were all required to attend either a city or local government meeting or like a sustainability action meeting or something like that, and then sort of share their experiences back, which was great too, to see their takes on it.
So talk to me about maybe just one or two doors that it's open for you.
Well, I went to this networking event that we had at Beckett's in our ballroom, and that is where I learned a lot about housing and the environmental issues and the food pantry and stuff like that. So I was able to talk to a lot of people, especially in the housing industry, and so I did get an internship with that, which I'm very excited about.
Excellent, very good.
And I'm able, thank you, and I'm able to talk to Dr. C, who we kind of have as part of our Civic Engagement Center as well. So it's been really fun for me, and I'm still meeting new people and still opening more doors, which is really cool. So
now when you talk about housing, are you talking about rental housing, or are you talking about housing for low-income people? What are you talking about?
Yep, housing for low-income, single moms, recently incarcerated people.
Like Section 8 housing, that kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's definitely a need for that.
Yeah, so there's a group, Esther, is going to be doing sort of a local study and assessment of the Oshkosh housing and maybe larger than Oshkosh. I don't
Is
know
it
all
the
those details.
Oshkosh Esther organization or the one from the Fox Valley?
Oh, see, now you're asking tough questions I wasn't ready for. I think it's the Oshkosh one, maybe both.
I think that they have some mutual ties anyway.
Yeah,
So.
so they're doing the big housing study, and the center's going to be partnering with them, and Chloe's going to be working on that project with her internship.
Okay.
Very excited.
All right. So, you know, if you've got this networking event, had this just been finished? Is this something that's still upcoming?
The networking event?
Yes.
We did that in March, and our
so that's
goal
done.
was to sort of reconnect our faculty to a variety of different local nonprofits. So we invited as many faculty as we could, as many nonprofits as we could.
So that was, it was over here too, so,
Got
okay.
them together to talk, and it was really great. And actually ran into a faculty member today at a different event, and she's like, yeah, I'm here today because of that networking event I went to in March. And it's just, because faculty want to do this kind of work in the class, but oftentimes they feel it's like, who do I talk to and who else does this kind of stuff? So we wanted to introduce them and have conversations. And we'll be continuing those sort of networking events. That was a big one. And then I think coming up this summer, we'll try to do more focused ones. So maybe we'll do one just on housing or just on one on people who are interested in food initiatives or whatever it may be. And then maybe in the fall, do another big one again.
Yeah. this whole housing thing, honestly, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't know how people are affording to pay the rents that they're paying. I don't know how people are affording to get the money for down payments that they're making. And waiving inspections when you're buying a house. That would scare me to death. I mean, people could sell you a bag of goods and you would not know necessarily. So I think that's a really viable topic. So, with budget constraints always being what they are, and budgets getting tighter and tighter and everything getting more and more expensive, has any kind of budget constraint, Mike, affected anything that the center is trying to do?
Well, we're luckily brand new, and we just got some funding given to us so we could get up started and get going. So we've been we were constrained before. We couldn't move because we didn't have the funding, but now we have the funding to get going. And we're being smart and conscious with it, and we're finding external partners. So with our election interns that we work with, the civic influencers, we get funding through this group called Campus Elect that gives those students stipends to do their work. For our speaker, we received a grant from the Tommy Thompson Center at UW-Madison. I think it's the Thompson Center for Public Service from UW-Madison. They help sponsor that speaker. We're applying to a different research grant through them as well for a food project. Hopefully that'll happen. So, we're trying to be as creative as possible and reaching out to different funding sources to make work happen and create partnerships.
Well, that's great. Is there a limit as to how many students can be involved with the center at any given time?
I only have so much money to pay interns, so I'm limited on that.
Yes.
But the civic influencers, this past year we were told we could have 2, but I was told we could hire quite a few more for this upcoming year if we wanted to. So students out there looking for a $500 stipend to do not a terrible amount of work, but gain a lot of great experience. I could probably hire 10 of them if they're interested pretty easily. And then the fellows, the volunteers, there's a limit to sort of like our meeting room space, but we can be flexible and figure things out. If students are really interested and really passionate, we're going to work for them. We did 1 recruitment email so far, and we already got 5 new fellows to sign up.
Wow, that's great.
So great. I think, and what's great is they all have such unique stories. They should tell their majors because they're not what you maybe would think they were. But we also had a political science major, we had a business major, we had a young woman who actually served in the National Guard and was working with the refugees. And had she been in the Guard about 2 weeks longer, she would have been stuck over near Ukraine dealing with the refugees because she was in those locations working with the refugees. So such unique backgrounds, but tell them what you two are studying as well.
Yeah, I'm a communications major.
All right.
So I'm talking to people all the time.
What do you want to do long term?
So long term, I want to be a communications director. So I want to be kind of the face of a company, do the public speaking for them.
Okay.
That's kind of what I want to do, or public relations somewhere.
All right. So you're going that route as opposed to working in the media.
I mean, we'll see, but pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
I would,
I'm not going to hold you to it. What about you? What are you doing, Jana?
I'm majoring in human services leadership with a minor in Spanish and a coaching cert.
And a coaching what?
Certificate.
Oh, certificate. Okay. All right. Well, that's pretty varied.
Yes,
Those 2 things are for sure. But now, what year are each of you in school?
I'm I'm going to be a senior. I'm going to be a 4th year.
Okay. And what about you?
I'm going to be a junior.
A junior. So junior and a senior. Is there a certain age that they have to be? So they could be a freshman.
We'll take anyone.
And still get involved.
Yeah. And we had a good mix this past year. I think that's it's cool. They see these topics so differently, but that's the way the world sees them, right? Because we all have these different backgrounds and stuff that we're coming to the table with, so they get to have those conversations right there, which is wonderful.
Yeah. So you're getting grant money. You got some money budgeted to you.
Yes.
Are you getting money from any other sources then?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Long term, the wish list, if I could have it, we'd love to have an endowed center, so that way we have some consistent
Wouldn't that be
revenue
wonderful,
that we could pull. It would be, and a lot of universities have that. If you look at even in the UW system, there's several that have that endowed person who's given money to make it happen. Some of the private colleges have that as well. And ultimately, to be sustainable, that would be really great.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe there's someone out there who wants to give us, a couple $1 million. Call me up. We'll figure it
that's
out. Gotta ask.
that's actually how the Oshkosh Area Humane Society got their
Exactly, yeah.
Humane Society, because the place they had before that, it was putrid. It was putrid. And some woman who none of us, and I say none of us because I was on the board of directors there at the time, none of us had ever heard of this woman.
Yeah.
But she passed away, left the shelter $1.2 million.
That's fantastic.
And that was all. Her only proviso was that we could not at any point invade that principle. So we had to keep that set aside always, but earning interest.
You could use the
So there
revenue,
would always be money
Yeah.
in perpetuity, or in
Yeah, that's right.
whatever, forever and ever.
Yeah.
Forever and ever, amen. The word I'm looking for is just escaping me. But yeah, so I mean, from that we were able to, do a capital campaign and get everything rolling, and there will always be money there to help the shelter,
Which is great.
with whatever it needs. So they're out there. They're
Exactly.
few and far between and kind of hard to find, but
It'll happen when it's supposed to, and until then, we're gonna use the resources we
You'll just
have,
keep
and we're
plugging
gonna do
along.
our best work. And what's great is we can do a lot of this stuff for very, very low cost. So we're gonna do the best we can, and ultimately it's about bringing people together. And it doesn't take a ton of money to always bring people together.
Yeah.
We want to host some of the events. That's where some of the money comes in place. But bringing people together, solving problems doesn't always take a lot of money. It takes people, so we can do that.
absolutely, yeah. So any closing thoughts, because we're quickly running out of time here.
Yeah.
I think this is a fascinating project
Thanks.
that you guys are doing. I mean, you've got a lot of irons in the fire all over the place.
And we're a small team. I'm not
Yeah.
even full-time doing this because I also have part of my other responsibilities. I have a faculty fellow who works with me on one course release, and we have a couple students, but we're just making it happen the way we can, and I hope people give us a little time to really get rolling with a full head of steam, because ultimately we really do want to reach out into the local community better and bring the local community in a bit and share knowledge and share resources. I think our students learn as they volunteer alongside people from our community and vice versa. There's such great wisdom that exists out there, and our students should also learn from that. And we're all part of the same community, so we're all still tackling these problems together.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, do you do anything during the summer, or is it just kind of planning for?
At least for this summer, it's planning.
Yeah, for the kickoff of the fall term.
Yeah.
So, okay. If people want to know more, should they just contact you through the center's website then?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the best place.
And there it is on the screen, miraculously, just like that. Do you guys have a Facebook page as well, or no?
We're just starting our social media launch, so we'll be launching Facebook and Instagram soon. We're trying to build up a little content for that, and then that'll get rolling out there real
Okay.
quick as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, guys. It's been a real
you.
pleasure. Before we sign off for this edition, I want to it's up on your screen, or it should be coming up. There is a family that on May 5th, there it is. There's a family, they don't live right in Oshkosh, but they are not all that far from Oshkosh. They had a tremendous fire at their house, and in the process of that, they lost 4 of their 6 children, nearly a dozen pets, including a number of dogs. Everything that they had in that house was destroyed, and it's just gone. So there's stuff there that people need. I also have this on our Facebook pages and our website. There are several drop-off locations, Perkins, Parnell's, the Reptile Palace, and Zeroni's are 4 here in town, and then there's a couple, there's one in Kokana, one in Menasha. On the other side of that, you'll see clothing that's needed, the types of clothing, the sizes, and financial contributions can be made as well. There's either a GoFundMe page, or if you are, maybe a little gun shy about doing something via a GoFundMe page, you can. The Fox Communities Credit Union, any of their locations, they have an account set up, and so that would be a secure way of doing this. Not that the GoFundMe page is not a secure way, but I just know how some people feel about the GoFundMe pages. They're never sure if they're legit or not. And so if you want to make sure that it's legit, and you want to make a financial contribution, just do it at any Fox Communities Credit Union location. The account number is on the bottom of the page. So that's going to do it for us. Thank you for watching us again. Thank you to my guests. Thanks to my volunteer crew. And most of all, thanks to you. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.